On today's episode of Miss Pursuit, I'm joined by Maddy Snyder of Montana, and we get to talk about her lifetime in the outdoors, from being little bitty hunting with her family, her dad, uncles, and cousins, to some of her favorite hunts along the way, her job at the Montana Wilderness Lodge, and getting to be out in the middle of the Bob Marshall Wilderness all through the summer has just been an amazing story to hear. So I hope you enjoy, listen along, and let us know what you think. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another Miss Pursuit podcast. Today, Maddy Snyder of Montana is joining us. She's a contributor for Miss Pursuit, and there are a couple of things that I can't wait to talk to you about on here, and probably a lot of things that people might not know about. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, you are originally from Montana, right?
Yep, I was born and raised here, so have not left, and I don't think I ever will.
I think that if I was in Montana, I wouldn't want to leave either.
Yeah, it's a great spot to be. Yeah. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and about how the outdoors has entered your life and when that was, and just how it's been a part of your life.
Yeah. So the outdoors have always been a huge part of my life, and it entered my life super early. My dad and my whole family and stuff, they hunt, and apart from hunting, we're just always outside hiking or rafting. And so I just was raised doing this pretty much. And I mean, my first hunt, I was probably like 6 years old, 5 years old,
Nice.
Sitting in a tree stand with my dad.
Yeah.
So it's just always something that's been there, and I've never even questioned it not being there. So it's weird thinking about it now being that way, because for some people that's not their story. But yeah. And then once I turned 12, I did hunter safety, and I've been hunting ever since. So just something that's always been a big part of my life. So I have my family to thank for that, of course. But
do you have any siblings, or is it just you?
I have a younger sister and an older brother.
Okay. It's kind of like a pack. Like there are 5 kids in my family, including me. And we always kind of just packed around when we were hiking or fishing or camping or whatever we were doing. We were a pack, and I loved that growing up.
Yeah, it makes it so much more fun. Like, I have a whole bunch of cousins, too, that are right around the same age. And a lot of them are boys. So for me, it was like I was the only girl in this big group of boys with my brother. And we were doing hunts every year with our uncles and dads and stuff. And that was like our family traditions. And that was what we looked forward to. So that really grew the love for hunting and the outdoors for me.
I bet it did. I know that, I grew up in the outdoors, but I didn't grow up hunting. And we would fish ponds. We would fish catfish ponds in Alabama and have fun and be out there. And I wasn't afraid of nature. I was in nature. My grandfather was a forester actually out west in New Mexico and Arizona. Cool. And so we grew up, I grew up with stories of my grandfather finding a snake, and it gave birth to live babies in his house. And so I've grown up with stories like that, with my mom picking up snakes that weren't poisonous or venomous and showing them to us and introducing us so that we wouldn't be afraid. We would be aware, and we would be cautious and respectful, but not fearful. But, I think a lot of people's stories either start out that way or start out without the outdoors at all in their life, and look back now being hunters and fishermen and being in the outdoors and wish that was a part of their life. And you've got that. You've had that. You probably can't imagine life any different.
Right. It's super interesting to think about, because it makes me think that that's just something that's always rooted inside a person. And sometimes it's easier for them because they're introduced to that early, or if that's in them and they weren't raised that way, they kind of have to figure that out for themselves,
Right.
But I definitely think that it's something that's inside a person, that some people's paths are a little different and stuff, but
it's in there. I mean, if you take it all the way back to the beginning of history, and depending on what your belief system is out there, but the beginning of history, no matter what your belief system is, began in the outdoors. And, it is something that I believe as well is ingrained in our DNA. It is in our system. And yes, it is for some and not for others. I think that, of course, you have the hunter and the gatherer and the thoughts of all of that. But I truly agree with you that it is instilled in us somewhere. And sometimes it just takes one little moment to awaken what's inside. And I love that it's a part of my history growing up, being fully immersed in bathing in the creek and finding out what fire ants feel like very early on. And
just simple stuff like that make a huge difference.
It's true. I think I still, when I'm out hunting early in the morning when the earth is waking up and you have those smells of the earth waking up, the sun hitting the dew and burning the dew off, there's a distinct smell when you are in the woods. And it immediately takes me back to waking up in a tent in, the middle of Shenandoah Valley in Virginia or anywhere, but waking up to that smell, it takes me back to my childhood immediately. And I think the nostalgia of that is what's kind of fun because it connects you throughout your whole life.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. Just little things like that you like grasp to that are so sentimental. And I do that as well, like smells, sounds, and even just like when the air starts to just get a little cold, you just get that excitement, and it's awesome.
It really is. What was your first hunt? You said that you went when you were 6. What were you hunting, deer, or what was your first hunt?
So the first ones that I can remember is I remember bird hunting with my dad when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I don't have a whole lot of memories of that, but I just remember that slightly. But the first stuff that I could really remember and kind of like would help participate in is we've always done a trip each year to eastern Montana on the Milk River. And it's kind of one of those just like fun trips, it's not too high stress, but my dad, he hunted whitetails over there.
Yeah.
And he would shoot like a whitetail buck every now and then when there's a nice one, but he would just buy like over-the-counter doe tags, and all my uncles and cousins would go. So it would just be pretty action-packed, like you didn't have to have a whole lot of patience to be like entertained, which I think is very good when you're bringing a kid along.
Agreed.
So and they would do it with their bows, and my whole family shoots traditional bows. So I'd be in a tree stand and get to watch my dad shoot deer and then be a part of like blood trailing them and dragging them out and hanging them and cutting meat and stuff. And it's just something that me, my brother, and then all my like other cousins were just a part of and stuff. So it like just super fun, like type of hunting, and you didn't have to be super miserable. It was like in October, so it wasn't super cold, and you saw a lot of deer and stuff. So for like a little kid, it was just like so exciting and so fun and stuff. And that I think that was a great way for me to start out. So
I agree. I think whether you're taking a young kid with you or you're taking a new hunter with you, definitely, you don't even have to have a harvest. A harvest would be nice, but just having movement, having wildlife in front of you up close where you haven't had that before is that exciting, that push to, okay, I want to go back. I want to do that again. I think that my kids handing them a set of binos in the tree stand the first time, and for the first time ever being within 30 yards of a deer, made their hearts explode out of their chest. And from that point on, whether they were going to be partaking in hunting or just observing, that drew them in. I want to be that close again. I want to observe that again. I want to be a part of that again. So it's an encouraging point to anybody who has kids or is going to be mentoring anybody. Just taking somebody out without even the thought of harvesting first is enough. You don't even they don't even have to pick up a gun or a bow to enjoy it. If there's movement, if you know of a place where there's movement, it's important.
Yeah, it's a great way for them to learn and stuff. And even like sometimes when you're the shooter, the one that's going to harvest an animal, there's like a level of stress that gets tacked onto that. So for a kid or a new hunter, it's good for them to be a part of something without having to have that pressure and just getting to like witness and learn and stuff. So I think that's like a great point.
I agree. My son, the first time he was up in a tree stand, he had decided that he didn't want to take a shot because he didn't feel like he was ready. And so I harvested that day, and he learned so much that day that it encouraged him to move on. And actually, he ended up harvesting last year. And so like you said, you don't have to be the one. It actually takes the pressure off of them to go out for the first time knowing I'm not going to harvest today. I just want to be there without the pressure of that harvest yet.
Yeah, it allows you just to observe and stuff and
learn.
Just a good way to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad I had that.
And you probably did the same as my kids have done growing up in it, walking behind hunters, watching how they move their feet, watching how they stop and listen. All of the lessons along the way that you learn as a kid growing up in it is nothing is lost. Nothing is wasted. And I think that there's the responsibility that I feel having them walk behind me is pretty heavy in that they're watching every move. And you probably did the same thing with your dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you pick up on a ton and like I don't even think you realize it until you're out doing it.
Yeah.
Like just simple things on, like you said, how they walk, areas they glass and stuff. And even just like watching them shoot an animal, like waiting for that animal to position itself right for you to take that shot. Like things like that are just so important to get to watch, so.
Yes. I think that even when in the off season, when we're hiking and when we're looking at things, not even like going into a park where you couldn't even hunt, but looking for tracks, looking for sign, looking for trails, looking for things that are going to be there because they're not pressured to be hunted, you can actually learn a whole lot from even going to places like that. And looking at, okay, you don't touch this plant. This plant is dangerous. These are berries that you wouldn't ever touch in the wild. There's so many lessons that aren't even on a hunt that you learn from just being in the outdoors. And I grew up with that without even having a hunting family to grow up in. I grew up learning about wildlife. And I think that's why when I was so much older and getting into hunting, that there was a lot that didn't surprise me, that it wasn't, it just kind of moved seamlessly into it. So those are very good points. I love that you grew up in that, and I can see like my kids coming behind, hearing from you. I now know, and I've known it, but it reminds me the responsibility that I have. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Whether you have kids or not, because this goes for adults that are coming hunting with you, people that you're mentoring, or that just a friend who wants to come along to watch, that it can be applied to all of it.
Yeah, like I've had a couple of friends that I've kind of helped introduce to hunting and stuff, and it's helped me learn a lot, just like watching them get into it and harvest their first animals and stuff like that. So
Yeah, you get to kind of think, okay, how would I have done that differently teaching? Or how could I make that easier on someone? You become very observant of other people, realizing, okay, what do they need? What are the questions that I can ask to make it easier? What would be encouraging? What would be discouraging? And so along the way, you learn how to be a better hunter by teaching.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, I love it. And you said you grew up in a family that shoots traditional bows. So was your first harvest taken on a traditional bow?
It wasn't, just because at the age of 12, traditional bows, they don't have that release. So I couldn't pull back a traditional bow that had enough poundage to ethically kill an animal.
Yep.
So my first kill was actually with a compound.
Okay.
And I shot that for a couple of years because I had to. Nothing wrong with it, but I had to.
Right.
And I switched over to a traditional bow. But yeah, so that first kill was with a compound and stuff.
Maddie, a lot of people, their first harvest is with a gun, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But for you at 12 to be able to take to harvest an animal with a compound bow, that's pretty stinking awesome.
Yeah. It really is pretty cool, and I have to realize that. But I just remember being a girl and 12, and all my other cousins, they're in the same age range, so they were starting to hunt too. And they were boys, so they were strong enough to pull back a traditional bow. And I just remember being so jealous. And it's I have no reason to be, because that's such a cool thing by itself. But yeah, it's funny to look back on that now, but you're totally right.
That's it. It's something, not a whole lot of people can say that they've done it. And I think that I'm competitive, probably like you. So I'm sitting here going, well, why can't I pull back 80 pounds? Because I can't.
Yeah.
And maybe I can work up to that eventually, but there's probably a high percentage of a chance, or a low percentage of a chance that would ever happen. So we're just built differently. So it's
for sure.
And being 12, I don't think... My son is probably a little bit smaller than some 12-year-olds, and he's strong. He's in karate, but I don't think he could pull back a recurve bow unless he really put a lot of work into it. I know my daughter couldn't at 12, so it's a huge accomplishment anyway at 12 to harvest an animal, and so kudos to you. And that's something to hold in high esteem. So what age did you switch over to recurve?
I'm trying to think here. Probably around the age 14, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that age, I was going into high school and stuff. So I did mostly rifle hunting throughout high school, just because of sports and stuff kind of consumed archery time. And then my senior year and first couple years out of high school, I really got a lot done with my traditional bow. And each year I've just been doing more and more. So it's been really nice to get a focus on that.
I want to take you back to that, to your first harvest with your recurve. How did that feel?
Oh, it's just incredible. I think about it, a couple of years ago, I shot a real mature bull elk with my rifle. And it was last year, I just shot just a white-tailed doe with my bow, but it was a good shot and stuff. And just the level of excitement and adrenaline I got from shooting a white-tailed doe was way exceeded my bull elk, which just because of the traditional bow aspect and how close it was, and getting to watch my arrow hit that mark, because I shoot instinctively. So it's just a pretty crazy thing. But yeah, my first kill was another white-tailed doe. And it's just a great feeling, you do so much practicing and you have to do everything the same way each shot, So you get nervous, is this going to be the same as as it is when I'm practicing and stuff, and you just have a little bit of nervousness. But like when you hit that mark and everything works out the way that you plan for it to be, it's a really good feeling.
It really is. It really is. I taught NASP for a couple of years here in our public school system. And, you know, I mean, I was with elementary students. So you're talking 4th and 5th graders picking up a bow. And there is a limit. There's a 20-pound limit on the bow. It's a Genesis bow. And there's no sights. There's no... It's much more traditional than a compound for the competition. And it's all about practicing the same way every single time. And minor technique changes along the way. But, you know, teaching 4th and 5th graders, it's all about safety. But at the same time, they're not realizing that those 10 steps that you go through, whether it's foot positioning, hip positioning, arms, breathing, all of that, their shoulder blade locking in, all of that practice that they're doing is that base foundation of repetition, of putting into practice so that when they got into a nervous situation, into the anxiety of a tournament, that they're not having to rethink each step along the way. It becomes more, it's just fluid as they learn and as they grow. So, you know, you hear a lot, put your, you know, shoot arrows. You're constantly practice before going into a hunt so that when those nerves come into it, that you can calm those nerves down with confidence of knowing your shot is good.
Yeah. You just kind of have to shoot enough to where, and I always have like a little checklist that I go through, and eventually muscle memory just kind of kicks in.
Yes.
It's really helpful when you're hunting and shooting at an animal that like you can turn your mind on and stuff, but a lot of times you'll just black out, you know?
Oh, I don't remember any of like the 30 seconds before I release. Like it's crazy. I mean, having kids, I don't remember a whole lot of the birth process. I don't remember it because of what comes after. It's that excitement. It's that adrenaline that's going through everything. And it's, you don't remember that process.
It's a crazy feeling. Hard to beat, though, that's for sure.
It's true. I have actually never harvested an animal with a gun.
Really?
I started with a crossbow, and it has evolved over time, but I took a rifle out hunting last year for the first time and didn't have a deer walk through. Okay, I take that back. I have not harvested big game with a gun. I have harvested duck and geese with a shotgun, but I have not harvested with a rifle or muzzleloader. But this year it might change.
Yeah, that's super interesting because most people, you know, they'll start out with the rifle and then kind of fall into the archery thing. But
it depends on where you hunt. So here, we hunted on private land for a little while, but it was in an area where you couldn't hunt with guns. And then the public land that we hunt now is archery or muzzleloader. And so or shotgun, you can shoot a shotgun, but it's definitely, and of course muzzleloaders nowadays can go almost as far as a rifle, which is crazy to me. But it just depends on where you hunt, because if you can't utilize a rifle, then you've got to figure out a way to get in there hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still waiting on my new bow. I started with a Browning, which is Browning does not make bows anymore. And they haven't for a really long time. So that tells you kind of how long. Anyways, I'm waiting on my Matthews bow. Because of all of the factories that had to shut down for a while, they're behind on everything. So I'm still waiting with anxiousness to put my hands
well, that's
on.
Exciting, but it's kind of getting close to hunting season, so hopefully it shows up soon.
100% correct. It is. We've got a month from this weekend, and our archery deer season opens.
Yeah. And I'm sure you want to be practicing and get all dialed in with your new bow too. So
100%. I would like to be ready. And last year we missed a little bit of archery season just because we had to last minute change up where we were hunting. And I don't want to miss that this season again that early. Yeah. Especially on public land. There is nothing like hunting public land with guns going off around you. That's not enjoyable when you're on the ground stalking.
Yeah, you kind of want to feel like you're by yourself, but then when you hear those other shots going off, it's a little
It's true. I kind of felt like I had to duck every now and then. And so I really want to utilize archery season this year more than I was able to last year. Tell me one of your favorite hunts that you've been on, because you've had a few that you've been on that you've been a part of or just observing, but what are some of your favorite hunts that you've been on?
Oh, that is so hard because I feel because in Montana here, I get a lot of options, between whitetail, mule deer, bear, elk, mountain lion, all that sort of stuff. And each thing's so different that it's hard to pick.
It brings a different piece to the story every time. Like there's a different favorite feeling for each one.
Yeah. I'd probably have to say my first high country mule deer was probably one of my favorites, just because I worked so hard for that, and that just adds a level of meaningfulness,
Yeah.
And it just kind of depends on where you're at too. That makes a good hunt. Like on my mule deer, I was way up in the mountains in a spot that I really like, and in an area that I've spent a lot of time in and stuff. So just being high up in an awesome spot and shooting a mule deer and stuff and having it all come together was pretty fun. But yeah, I was with my boyfriend at the time, and we spotted some deer from down below on the road glassing, and then went up after them. And it was kind of one of those things where you weren't really expecting to go on a huge long hike that day. So we were we're just going to hike up a little bit, do some glassing. We'll just grab one pack, and then if we see them again, we'll grab more gear and then go make a plan, And we ended up hiking a little bit, spotting them, and then we just kept going. We didn't go back to the truck to get anything else, which you know how that stuff goes. It happens once in a while. And I ended up shooting this mule deer from 80 yards and stuff, so that was fun to get pretty close. It was with the rifle, but it was still cool. And we just had one pack, and my boyfriend, of course, is way stronger, so he could handle a bigger load. So we loaded that pack up and put it on him, and we had some twine, I think, and I just tied together the front quarters, and I just hung it around my neck. And that's how we packed it out.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it was miserable, but that's what made it so memorable, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, we worked hard for that one. And last winter, I just got it mounted. My boyfriend's dad's a taxidermist, so he kind of helped me put that together, and I got to do some of the steps, so that was fun. So now I got it up on my wall, European mounted, so pretty excited.
To be able to go full circle with that, it's a good feeling, isn't it? To be able to go from seeing the deer through the harvest, through the pack out, through the processing, and then finally through mounting and going through the whole spectrum of it is it brings it all together, and the story feels complete when you're able to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We've done a couple of our Euro mounts, and the last one we did was my son's button buck. And it's on the wall. Maddy.
That's special, yeah.
Because it was a first harvest. And if you've got a first buck harvest, it goes on the wall. And it makes a difference. We put it up there, we pull out the meat, and he looks over there and he goes, "That's what we're eating. I did that." We tell the story over and over, and of course it gets embellished a little bit here and there, but it's a fun, it brings it full circle. He has seen it from the moment it walked out to the harvest, to the pack out, to the processing, to the mount. And to be 9 years old at the time and go through that, it creates a hunter to be able to do all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I'm in my room right now and I'm looking at my first bow kill right now up on my wall, and that's mounted, of course, and it's nothing huge and stuff, but it's special. So
it means something. It's we call it our wall of first, and of course there are deer on our wall that have 11 points here in the eastern U.S. It's the whitetail, 11 points. And then you have a button buck. And so you see the spectrum of it, but each one tells a story. Each one has significance, and each one had excitement, anticipation, pride. Each one has its own story. And so it doesn't matter the size. It matters the story behind it. So it's really special. I love that. He loves it. It's hysterical when he has friends come over and he goes, "That's mine."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't think I had a couple of people when I was posting the process that we were going through for mounting it, or for cleaning it up and getting it ready, that they've never seen, a button buck Euro mounted. And so going through that process, you have to be so careful. And it looked like we ended up having to glue one of the little buds back on, because for some reason it wasn't for us. He actually came that way, that one of his little buds was broken. So, and it was all the way down. So you can only imagine if he had lived through, it could have been a damaged irregular rack later on. So it was pretty, I had never seen.
Yeah, that's kind of cool to look at and think about that. For sure.
Yeah. Each one has its own story and its own significance, and they're all different. It's really cool to see when you go through stuff like that. But speaking of mule deer, I did an interview with Carrie Hirschberger. Do you know she hunts Washington?
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that name, no.
Go look her up on Instagram. Her favorite animal to hunt is a mule deer, and she's in Washington State. She's an amazing person. If it's somebody that I think any female hunter could go and follow her and really learn a lot. And her heart is fully in it. Her mom hunts alongside of her. And it's just, they've got a great story, but her favorite animal to hunt is mule deer. She loves them.
Cool. I'll have to go check it out.
You'll have to go check it out. Just your story about the mule deer and being in high country, it reminded me of her and her story along the way. But yeah, she loves getting out there. She said they have so much character. They are completely different from other deer. It is hard to hunt them at times, and especially in high country. Yeah. And so she just says it's a hunt that you won't forget for sure.
Yeah, because I've been hunting mule deer quite a bit, and like you can drive to eastern Montana and kind of hunt mule deer more in like the plains and rolling hills and stuff. And that's always been fun. But here in like northwestern Montana, if you get up high in like the steep, nasty mountains where they're timbered and stuff, like the mule deer there just seems so much more different than like a plains mule deer. And for me, it's just been a lot more rewarding and stuff. And just like the areas you get to hunt are so awesome to get to spend time in. But yeah, it's for sure one of the animals that I really enjoy hunting. And it's kind of at the top of my list sometimes. So
I'll send you her, or you can look her up. She hunts Washington, Carrie Hirschberger. She's great. I love her. I think that we're going to be going, if everything works out, we're going to be going to Oklahoma next May for a long distance shooting camp. So I'm excited to go get to hang out with her, but she's one to follow. She's a great example of women in our community, and it's her stories are fun. She's doing great things.
Yeah, I'll look her up for sure.
Awesome. I also want to hear, because when we were booking this, you had just gotten back from Bob Marshall. So tell me a little bit, because this isn't your first trip to Bob Marshall. You are very familiar with this area. And so tell us a little bit about your trip that you just had.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex is I think it's the 5th largest wilderness area in the lower 48. It's over 1 million acres, but it's just a huge area here in Montana. And I work for an outfitter through the summertime. So last year we do fishing trips in the Bob Marshall. So last year I did 8 trips in the summertime, and they're all 6 days. And this year I've done 6 trips in the wilderness, and they've all been 7 days. So I just a couple days I got out, and that was our last trip and stuff. But yeah, holy crap, it's been a fun summer. So what our trips usually look like is we ride in for 2 days on horseback. And the first day is a 15-mile ride, and the second day is around 18 miles. So they're long days.
And you're walking a little funny after.
Yeah. So you get smack dab in the middle of the Bob Marshall once you're 34 miles in. And you get a day to hang out and stuff. And then some packers take the stock out, and then I float for 4 days out of there on a raft. So it's awesome country. I love being there. And then I love the aspect of riding horses in and then getting to float the river out. So I get to do some really fun stuff and get paid to do it, of course. So it's a pretty good gig, and I really love it. But yeah, I spend quite a bit of time in the woods, and it's funny when I get out going through emails and doing the whole missed pursuit stuff, because I always got to get caught up, and I only have a day in between each trip. So it's pretty hectic at times, but yeah, it's awesome.
It kind of takes you back to my grandfather would tell us about hunting. In fact, he told me this just a couple months ago, and I said, Grandpa, why didn't you tell me this growing up? But he used to go in New Mexico, and this was decades upon decades ago, and they would horseback in to turkey hunt. And
really?
Their technique was to scatter the turkeys, because back then, he said, they were in huge groups, so many that you could actually ride your horse through and scatter them. And then you would get off your horse and hide, and then they would all come back together, and that was when you would hunt them, is when they would come back together as a group. And as they were moving back together, that was when you would harvest your turkeys and then carry them out horseback. And, we're not talking back in the 1800s. We're talking 1900s, working for the forestry and being able to do that. And it's fun to hear the stories of generations before us and how they did these things. And there weren't motorized bicycles. There weren't ATVs. There weren't vehicles that you could take as far as you can and then hike in a little ways and harvest out. It was horseback. And so hearing what you are doing and the whole summer, it kind of takes you back to how the generations before us would do this. And there are places that you cannot see unless you either backpack in or you horseback in.
Yeah, that's why I love it so much. It's such a good escape from like everything, and it is cool that like my main forms of transportation are on a horse or on a raft, and I really enjoy that. And you can't have any motorized anything, any big battery packs or anything like that. So you really get back on track with like how things kind of should be.
Right.
And I really enjoy it, and it's like just quiet back there, and like for fun you're fishing or swimming or doing little hikes or doing fun stuff on a horse. Like this last trip, me and my buddy, she also works for the same outfitter, like we had a day off, and what we did for our day off is we brought a horse into the river and we're just climbing on him and then jumping off.
Yes.
It's like, it's so cool that this is how we're passing time right now.
That my mom tells me stories all the time about how she would ride her horse to the pond and it'd be hot as heck because they lived in Florida. And she would ride the horse straight into the water and he would just stand there cooling off, and she would jump off and then climb back on and jump off and climb back on. And then they would sunbathe to dry off before they headed back home. And it allows, I feel like it allows your soul to come back to center.
Yeah.
And
it's so good for you.
To be able to see places that aren't touched regularly by humans, there's a gift in that, to be able to experience that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There definitely is.
What fish were you fishing for?
Cutthroat.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so our fishing season, like bull trout's a big part of that too.
Right.
But there's a season for them and it ends at the end of July. So over August we're just doing cutthroat.
Okay.
But yeah, bull trout's another big theme to hit in July. But yeah, it was awesome.
I have never caught a trout. I've been trout fishing. Tennessee is not known for trout fish. I mean, the eastern part of Tennessee, you can find trout, but they're not native to southeastern of the southeastern part of the United States. So they have changed water temperatures. They grow and then distribute them throughout the area. And so it's not necessarily a natural resource to our state.
Yeah.
And my husband is a wildlife biologist. He works for the Army Corps of Engineers. And so his big thing is we need to get back to what's natural for our area. We shouldn't have things that aren't natural here and naturally grown, naturally living. And we should protect the things that are. And because you're losing things, even small little bitty fish that are supposed to be here are being outrun because of things that aren't native species. And so to get over to where trout are native, to where they grow to the specifications that they are supposed to grow to versus over here, it's probably not the same as they would be in their natural element. It would be a blast to be able to do that. One day will. And I'll take him because he'll want to.
Yeah, you'll have to make a trip up to this area because when you go into the Bob Marshall, the main river there's the South Fork of the Flathead. And you're talking about like the way fish should be and like just how natural it is. But so at the end of the South Fork River, you hit Hungry Horse Reservoir. And then below that, there's a big dam, a man-made dam called the Hungry Horse Dam. And so that's blocked any non-native fish or trout from traveling their way up there. So the South Fork River is like 100% natural, and it hasn't been messed up from like lake trout traveling their way up there. So the natural species have really been able to like thrive and flourish up there just because they don't have non-native stuff messing with all that. So it's a really cool opportunity just to fish and spend time on a river the way it's supposed to be without all those non-native stuff messing everything up.
It's true. It's very true. And you find that things flourish better when they are in their natural area. And and so that is, I mean, I love hunting, and it is my top favorite thing to do. Fishing is pretty close. And so to be able to enjoy that kind of fishing, he loves to fly fish anyway, but it would be a blast to be able to be there, like you said, in an area where it hasn't been touched by non-native species. That's pretty cool. And then y'all, what do you pack in for food, or do you utilize what you catch, of course, to maintain?
Seems like at least once a week we'll eat some cutthroat or like whitefish or stuff like that. But we pretty good back there. Just like having so many mules pack your stuff in, like you don't really have to worry about like, okay, I'm backpacking and I'm just going to be eating like mountain houses and trail mix for the next 8 days. So we like pack in 4 coolers just filled with like good food. Like we eat like fajitas, steaks, stroganoff, spaghetti, pulled pork sandwiches. Like it doesn't change much from like just eating at home, just because we have the resource to pack in all that weight and stuff.
See, where everybody that's going to be listening to this is, okay, sign me up. I want to go. I want to go. And if you are listening in, that knowing then what you said about the trout, if you were wanting to fish for trout, you need to go earlier in the summer before the end of July to be able to do that.
Yeah, to fish for bull trout, you got to be before July, and then cutthroat, you can fish whenever.
Okay.
But,
yeah. That's good to know.
And if anyone's interested in the lodge that I work for, it's Montana Wilderness Lodge. If anyone wanted to book a trip or anything, or a do-it-yourself trip's always fun too, but if you don't have the resources to do that, then there's plenty of great outfitters.
Okay, that is good to know. I'm glad you said that. Tell us a little bit about what you are going to be doing and what you are doing for Miss Pursuit as a contributor.
So recently I've just been writing like 2 pieces a month for Miss Pursuit. And so these past 2 months I've been writing, and that's about it right now. I was hoping to do some pieces on the Bob Marshall coming up here.
Good.
So I've been doing that, and then just sharing my experiences the best I can. I've been a busy girl, just out doing stuff outside and hunts and the whole Bob Marshall trips and stuff. So I've got a lot to share coming up.
Good. I'm glad. I was talking with, who was I talking with the other day? I was talking to Sammy from New Zealand, and it is such a blast. We were talking about the Miss Pursuit collaboration of all of these women, and we kept saying we need to get together, the whole group, because of course we're like-minded and we all have this passion for the pursuit of the outdoors. And yet at the same time, as I've talked to each one of you guys, I've started seeing, these 2 ladies would really get along. And I mean, we would all get along, but it's been fun to be able to have conversations. And by the end of the conversation, I'm going, okay, yes, we're friends now, and I'm going to come visit, and you're going to come visit, and we're going to all hang out eventually at some point in time and have such a great experience just being around each other. But I love that each person brings such a different experience, even under the same umbrella of our passions. And the things that we learn from each other are astounding. It's so much fun to read the articles.
Yeah, it's been like really fun following along with some of these girls and stuff, because like we're all outdoors women or hunters or whatever, but everyone's pretty different. Like you mentioned Sammy from New Zealand and stuff. Like I've been having a blast looking at some of the stuff that she's been doing just because it's so different and like foreign to what I do.
Yeah.
So just things like that have been really fun to pay attention to and look at.
I know. It's fun having everybody from all over the world and all over our nation, even just within our nation of the United States. Each part of it's so different that it's foreign to somebody who's never been one place or another. And then you've got Canada and you've got New Zealand and you've got, I mean, it's just the spectrum of differences makes it exciting and makes it kind of encouraging to get out there and to try these new things and to go experience what Sammy just posted yesterday, that big, huge, she called it a crawfish, like a huge, that is not the crawfish that we have here in Tennessee.
Yeah, she called it like a big bull crawfish, and I was like, it just cracked me up.
Looks like a big, huge lobster.
Cool,
yeah, I love it. It is so cool to see the different species around the world that you can hunt and taste and utilize hides for, like, all of that. Yeah. So it's been a fun, I think that has been something exciting about Miss Pursuit. You can come in as a newbie, but you could also come in knowing so much about hunting and still learn and still get excited and encouraged to push forward into something new.
Yeah, with the Miss Pursuit stuff, you have a resource for just about everything you could be interested in, it seems like, and everybody has a different perspective and stuff that would be super helpful to whether you're an experienced hunter or outdoors woman, or, like you said, a new person looking for good resources and info. So
yep, it's very true. Very, very true. Well, tell me what is on your docket for this year, for this upcoming season, the new season's coming through.
Yeah, so for the next couple weeks, I'm still going to be working for the same outfitter. We have some elk hunts going in, so we'll have like 3 or 4 hunts. So that'll be fun. It won't be me pulling the trigger or anything like that, but being a part of that and watching hunters hopefully fill their tags. And then September 15th, I'm going moose hunting with my dad because my dad drew a moose tag for Montana, and he's been putting in for this tag for probably like 20 years. So him and my uncle actually drew it. So I'm going to go be a part of that, and they're going to hunt with their recurve bows. So I'm super excited to watch my dad hopefully fill his tag with a traditional bow.
With a once in a lifetime. Like you said, he's been putting in for this for so many years. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And I've never hunted moose before, so I'm excited just to like learn how the heck to do it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be super fun, though, so I'm excited.
That will be fun. That'll be fun to follow along, too. Keep us posted on that.
Yeah. I'll probably be sharing lots of stuff. And then after that, I actually drew a pretty good elk tag for Montana. So that's going to be keeping me busy too. So I'm excited for that.
It's always fun to be able to find a job that not only supports your addiction, if we can say that in a positive way.
Right.
It's always good to find a job that fills that desire, that passion. And I mean, just to be paid to be out in the wilderness is such a dream job. I mean, it is a complete dream job. Does it make it easy? No. Does it make it more enjoyable? I don't know, maybe, but it's to be able to live your day life and your dream life all together in one. It's a huge blessing.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I'm super blessed that I've gotten to spend this much time outside, and my job is doing the stuff that I enjoy anyways. So it's been super fun.
Now, how did you get involved with this outfitter? Did you start interning, or was it just something that you applied for and got in?
So the outfitter is actually, I've known the family pretty much my whole life, and they're just good family friends. So they bought this lodge and outfitting business in the spring of 2017.
Okay.
So pretty much as soon as they bought it, I was there doing work for them.
Yep.
And just kind of always done it. So yeah. So they've just been super good family friends, and they're awesome to work for. And yeah, it's been a blast.
I brought it up there. There are people out all the time trying to figure out how to do that, how to make their day job, the thing that would help fund their dream, be all encompassing the same thing. And so it seems to be everyone that I talk to, it's connection. And then a few people every now and then it's, you start off with the grunt work. You start off as basic as possible just to be able to work up toward things and earning that spot.
Yeah, sometimes that's how it has to be, Yeah. But yeah, there's majority of outfitters, they usually have some pretty basic work and stuff, and sometimes it's not the stuff you want to do right away. Like you may be just at the lodge instead of going into the back country or something like that, but you can definitely work your way up there and figure that out, especially if you have the passion to like do that. That's what's most important, because like my boss always talks about it, but like you're in the woods majority of the summer. So like you have to want to be there,
Right.
If you don't have that passion stuff, you're not going to be having fun and you're not going to be doing good work. So as long as that passion's there, you can pretty much make anything work. So
it's true. And they notice whether you're cleaning toilets or serving food or cleaning rooms or just the grunt work. Like I said, it is noticed your work ethic. And if you're not going to apply yourself to those basic things, how are you going to apply yourself out in the woods? How are you going to be helpful if you can't put 100% into what you're doing in the smaller jobs, like you said? And it's completely noticed by everybody. And so you've got to put 100% in with whatever you're doing to show your desire to be there.
Yeah. Yep. You're 100% correct. So
yes. Well, I appreciate your time today. I think that we're going to have to talk again after this season, after the moose hunt and after the elk hunt, and talk some more. I want to hear about that moose hunt.
I'll probably have a lot of good stories.
Oh, so. I bet. But I appreciate your time today. Tell everybody how they can follow you. You told us it's the Montana Wilderness Lodge.
Montana Wilderness Lodge and Outfitting.
Okay.
Yeah, and their Instagram should be on my stuff quite a bit.
Okay.
But I think their Instagram is just Montana Wilderness Lodge.
Okay.
But you can find that on my Instagram, which is Maddy Rose, but there's 5 Y's in Maddy, so it's like Maddy Rose.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes. Well, we'll link you on this podcast so that they can go and follow you. And if they have any questions, they can go through there. And make sure to find her on Miss Pursuit's webpage and on her Instagram. You can follow along with the articles that Maddy's writing and hear more about the Bob Marshall Wilderness and hear all of these stories. Maddy, thank you so much for all of this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You're welcome.